Hepatitis is the inflammation of the liver, which is the organ responsible for filtering toxins from the body, producing bile for digestion, and producing proteins and clotting factors. The most important cause of hepatitis worldwide is viruses, of which there are 5 main types: A, B, C, D, and E. Hepatitis B and C are major health challenges globally, affecting over 300 million persons worldwide. The suspicion of hepatitis may be a challenge, as there are typically no symptoms. However, if infected, non-specific symptoms may include decreased appetite, nausea, vague abdominal discomfort, jaundice or yellow eyes, and abnormal liver function tests. If not treated, hepatitis of any type can lead to cirrhosis and liver cancer, which leads to over 1 million deaths worldwide. If you suspect you may have been exposed to the virus that causes hepatitis, talk to your doctor today and get tested.
This public service announcement is brought to you by the Public Hospitals Authority in conjunction with the Medical Association of the Bahamas and the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas.
The Ministry of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting is partnering with the Bahamas Christian Council to help build stronger Bahamian families.
I believe that our ultimate experience in living begins with God and family.
Our purpose is to facilitate, guide, inspire, and equip you to have a better life.
And a strong family foundation begins with each of us trying to become better individuals.
Let's unite for a stronger Bahamas.
This message is brought to you by the Ministry of Social Services, Information and Broadcasting, the heartbeat of the nation, leading Bahamians from dependency to self-sufficiency to economic empowerment.
The Dixon Hill Lighthouse in San Salvador to let you know that marine protected areas make dollars and cents. A well-designed and managed network of protected areas.
At the Broadcasting Corporation of the Bahamas, I'm Clint Watson, and this is ZNS. The Rundown is brought to you by Commonwealth Brewery Limited. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the show. Great to have you with us tonight. Well, U.S. President Donald Trump seems to be getting even more comfortable signing executive orders today. He signed more, one of them to stop U.S. funding for United Nations programs. Now, that is no dead, could be devastating, as indeed the U.S. is a big payer and contributor to the United Nations. It's the latest in his move to stop billions of dollars in spending for international agencies in the U.S. that have been strategic partners pretty much with the world during crisis, disaster, or just initiatives. This move to remove the focus off of the U.S. being the world's rescuer and focus it on MAGA, that's of course making America great again, is having significant pushback and concern, not only in America, but throughout the world. But President Trump is showing no signs of letting up. It's now placed countries in an unusual position of wondering, will they be next? Here at home, our administration is not saying much, but all eyes are really on whether we will be further impacted by any of these orders or new policies. Every day is a wait and see. Tonight, we take on this issue and we talk about it. How will it impact us, particularly the recent tariffs that we've been hearing about? How is that going to impact us, even though it's placed on hold for 30 days? Does it still have significant consequences for us? Those are the real issues that we're concerned about, particularly since we're a country that does not export. And if you don't export, then you're going to be very concerned, because that means almost anything and everything that you need and that you import could have a tariff on it. And that means all the efforts to reduce cost of living goes out the window, because now things are even more expensive. It seems as though when you get rid of one problem, another one shows up. So that's a real issue. Is that going to affect consumers? Is it going to affect us and various businesses, particularly as we trade with the United States of America? So we're going to have that discussion tonight with a leading businessman and CEO and a former chamber president who knows this all too well. And we'll talk to him about that. Then a little later in our show tonight, of course, is the concern about crime. And there are some initiatives that the Ministry of National Security has implemented to address them. We're going to talk about one of them tonight and really how the fight on crime is going. And who's here to do that? Well, nobody better than the Minister of National Security himself. The Honorable Wayne Munro is in the studio. And we'll talk to him about some of these new initiatives they're using as also intervention measures and what impact is it having on crime. We'll talk about that. So an exciting rundown for you, and we get right to it right after the break. Stay with us.
After 30 years of banking, I've decided to take a leap of faith. I moved from banking into an untapped industry, which is manufacturing in the Bahamas. And now we are standing on 3 acres of land on which we're going to be putting the Bahamas' first end-to-end plastic recycling company, Eden Recycling and Manufacturing Company Limited. Eden has 2 arms, recycling and manufacturing.
This is groundbreaking for us. It's never been done before. It really makes a difference, not only in the Bahamas, but even around the world. This is not just a project that we're doing so that we can make a couple of dollars. We want to make sure that it benefits those who come after us. In future generations, we hope that this is a small vision, that they will take it and they'd expand on it. We can have the formula for what it means to do end-to-end recycling in the Bahamas, in the region, and even if we have to export these ideas and thoughts and concepts even into the U.S.
The internet isn't just for surfing. There's a sea of shoppers buying online, and you can connect with them on Tingsy. Tingsy is the SBDC's online storefront built for Bahamians. Take your business to the next level by selling to customers online, both at home and around the world. People want Bahamian things, and if you got things to sell, sell on Tingsy. Find out how you can connect with a sea of buyers by visiting tingsybahamas.com.
We're here at the Nassau Village Community Center project, where over the past 17 months, we've hired over 20 Bahamian subcontractors to bring this beautiful project to fruition.
I've been living in Nassau Village for more than 19 years, and to see a project like this brings great joy and pride to me.
This state-of-the-art multi-purpose community center will serve as a crime-fighting initiative in the community, also help with the education of our kids in this community, and a hurricane shelter.
Yeah, and it also shows what we as Bahamians can achieve when we work hand in hand with each other.
We have the technical know-how, and we can pretty much deliver on any project here in the Bahamas or in the world.
Bahamas Pipe and the Bahamian Company, they prove that they believe in Bahamians.
Based on the outcome of this project, I don't think they're disappointed in giving a small person an opportunity to do a job such as this.
The more opportunity they get, the more opportunity we will get.
If you look around and see the work done so far, it just shows what we as Bahamians can do.
Welcome back to the Rundown. It's great to have all of you with us, particularly those of you who are in the Lion's Den, and then those of you watching by YouTube, or if you're watching on your cable channel or Flow TV dial, welcome to the show. Well, America's trade war, looming concern for the region, which may lead to a new norm for countries like the Bahamas, heavily reliant on imports. Estimated, get this, in excess of $3.7 billion. Now, this report, our AltaV's Mornings Tonight, examines a possible fallout from those tariffs proposed for Canada, China, and Mexico that are on pause, at least for the latter, until early March. Take a look.
A lot of that stuff that we import is not actually made in the U.S. It's made in other countries. And some of those other countries include Mexico, China, and Canada.
Chairman of the Bahamas Chamber of Commerce and Employers Confederation, Timothy Ingram, pointing out that significant increases can be expected once United States President Donald Trump's trade war attack on Mexico, Canada, and China sets in. as dialogue between Canada and Mexico and the U.S. has now led to a month delay on the tariffs. The Chamber executive remains cautious. Items like avocados, among others, according to Ingram, may be set to soar in price.
The U.S. has applied a 25% tariff to Mexican avocados. When we import those Mexican avocados from the U.S., then we will get that 25% tariff added on as well, which means the increased cost for those goods.
From car parts produced in Canada to vegetables grown in Mexico, a bleak outlook for nations like the Bahamas. The trade war imposed while creating challenges for Mexico, China, and Canada, so Ingram believes, may have a reverberating effect.
The U.S. is a huge exporter of agricultural products, pork, for instance, being one of them. And so if the U.S. farmers are not able to sell their pork to Canada, to Mexico, to China, it may be the case that you see discounted prices on those kinds of things.
The Chamber chairman feels a shift in import patterns may also be looming, affording greater purchasing options for the Bahamas outside of the United States.
We should cultivate other markets as well and begin to look at those for when there is an issue with sourcing from the U.S.
And the latest tariff development announced on Tuesday when China listed a broad package of economic measures targeting the United States, hitting back at U.S. President Donald Trump's 10% tariffs on Chinese imports. Now, the fresh taxes will be levied on items like crude oil, liquefied natural gas, coal, cars, and pickup trucks. And according to international reports, the new Chinese tariffs are expected to begin next week, Monday, February 10th. Reporting for the Bahamas Tonight, I'm Altaviz Munnings.
Thanks, Altaviz. So joining me to discuss this issue further is former Chamber of Commerce President and businessman, CEO as well, Addison Sumner. Sir, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
So, you know, we always say when the United States sneezes, we catch the cold kind of thing. And with this bold new move to put tariffs on neighboring countries, although the Bahamas has been levied as one of the countries to have taxes, we import. And in these countries, we are impacted by what we bring in from those countries.
Right.
Is this a real issue or something we ought to be watching and very concerned about?
I think we should watch it. I won't be overly concerned at this point, but I think it's important, though, Clint, to set up how this all came about, right? This did not come about from the United States president because of economic need.
Right.
Right? This did not come about because he wanted to generate more revenue for his economy. This came about purely because he wanted to protect his borders. This is border security at work, and he threatened to impose tariffs on the neighboring countries to get them to strengthen their border, stop illegal migration, slow down the use of fentanyl, etc. The consequence of that now, of course, would have been this 25% tax levied on Canada and Mexico. So the way that the Bahamas would likely have been impacted, because we know that it's been a pause for at least a month or so, would be that it doesn't impact our trade with the United States necessarily.
Correct.
Because it only impacts goods that are manufactured or produced in Mexico or Canada that are exported into the U.S. market and then that are exported out of the U.S. market.
So we won't see these tariffs being placed on goods that come directly to the Bahamas from those markets?
No, because I mean, of course, we will always be content with paying our customs duties, right? Which is what tariffs are.
Right.
Customs duties and excise taxes, etc. But if we were to conduct trade as we do now, directly with Canada, directly with Mexico, then that trade tariff situation does not impact us at all. What impacts us is if we were to buy corned beef, for example, that we know is produced in Canada, that corned beef was sold to some large wholesale outfit in the United States.
In America.
And then
they would have paid that tax. So that means that corned beef goes up because they got to ship it to us.
Yes. So anything that touches American soil will from those countries, if this deal were to go through, would attract that tax on those products, right? But if we were to shop directly to Mexico and have those goods sent from Mexico directly to the Bahamas, from Canada directly to the Bahamas, then we don't pay those
And in fact, my friend, you actually will be safe. In cut of the middleman, you might actually save on some things.
Well, it's all about, you know, developing further your supply chain, right? Looking at other options, seeing how you can generate more of your vendor relationships that are not all necessarily coming out of the United States, but looking at other opportunities as well for your business.
And this is what Prime Minister said he would look at doing, finding other alternative trading partners that we can buy direct from.
Yes, and which is important because you need to diversify your supply chain as well, right? Because if we look at how we came, for example, through the pandemic, where we saw a lot of disruptions from supply chain. We saw at the end of last year, the longshoremen went on strike or threatened to go on strike. And we know that that would have had a devastating impact on our supply chain issues as well. So any prudent business, especially if you're in the wholesale distribution business, you would have had, I imagine, procurement people on staff, right? Some other purchasing experts on staff who will guide you and tell you when and how to purchase. And if I were in that position, right, and I heard about this possible imposition of taxes from when it started talking months ago, I would have gone into my supervisor, my CEO, and said, let's do some forward purchasing now. Let's buy some futures contracts, right? Let's lock our price points in, because if this tariff thing does go through, at least we're locked into a price that would be 25% less than what is being proposed. Fortunately for us, now there's a stay on this, so we don't expect to see any immediate impact of this. But I wouldn't be so knee-jerk with this, Clint, because the only way that you'll be impacted again is if you bought products that were manufactured in those countries that were exported into the United States and we're buying them out of the United States, right? And that includes either whether it's a whole product or components of a product, right? So for example, you might decide to buy an iPhone from the United States, but the components of that iPhone were made in other countries. Those parts of it may have incurred that tariff, so that would increase the price of your iPhone in the United States being shipped into the country.
There are predictions that should there be a trade war, it could lead to recession and it could lead to inflation. Why?
It's the increase in the cost of doing business, right? Anytime you have a situation where your expenses exceed your revenue, you're going to have a tailspin. You're going to have what is called a recession. It goes into depression, et cetera, right? So if we start talking about increasing or imposing tariffs on products coming into the Bahamas, we already having to pay customs duty. We already having to pay VAT on these items coming in. Now you're talking about potentially another 25% or so added on to that cost. But it may be more than 25%. 25% is being added on to the first cost coming into the United States market. But you have to now consider your margins, because if you're a businessman and you're used to having, let's say, 20% margin on your product, you don't want to lose your margin.
Right.
So the way that's going to impact us would be that the consumer now would have to be the ones to pay that difference, because if I'm a business person and my costs have increased by 25%, I'm not going to swallow that. I'm going to pass it on to my customer. That's who's going to end up paying that ultimately. And if everyone is now having to pay an increase in the cost of goods in this country, and these tariffs at the moment do not impact services, if everyone is required to pay an additional 25% or so more in certain goods that are coming into the country, then naturally it's going to have an impact on the economy. It could cause slowdown in spending, which is where recession really begins, when it stops moving, right? And as we know, we call money currency for a reason. It's supposed to move.
Right.
When currency stops moving, it loses its value, right? And so when you talk about a recession, if prices go up and people stop spending as much as they used to, then yeah, that's usually where this whole idea of a recession begins.
I want to talk about another thing, so we'll take a couple more minutes on this, and that is obviously we see the inflated prices of eggs, right? Eggs, which used to be $3-something a dozen, and now way more than that, doubling that. Do you see? Obviously, we're being told that futuristically, because of a bird flu coming on, that it's going to be even longer before they regain themselves and so forth. What do you predict is going to happen with that? I mean, are we going to see possibly paying $15, $20 for a carton of eggs?
Well, I think, frankly, it might get worse before it gets better.
Really?
Because of what we see happening and trending globally. The bird flu now is just adding on to those concerns that we have. But here's the alternative now, though. We're seeing that there are local groups who are now producing local eggs We saw on the news, your newscast earlier, in fact, about schools certainly producing eggs now for $5 for a dozen eggs.
Yeah.
Right. So if I were, buying eggs, my wife buys the eggs. If I were to buy, I'll go make a beeline to Government High School.
Of course.
To try and get my orders in. So it actually, these kinds of things actually create opportunities. So we have to be open-minded to see where the opportunities are, right? So every consequence has there's an action and a reaction. And I think when we see these things happening, let's just open the box and see where the opportunities are for us to explore.
How are we going to, this is my final question, how are we going to bring the cost of living down? That is one of the, I guess, challenges of any administration, particularly this one, and one that they recognize must be dealt with if they want to stand a chance of re-election. How does that happen?
How much time did we have?
I know, right?
Listen, there are so many factors that go into the cost of living. A lot of it has to do with policy, right? Government policy.
Government policy.
Government policy has a lot to do with it because we have to live by policies. Policies establish laws, right, and vice versa. So we've got to live by policies established. But there are also times when we've got to look at taking certain level of personal responsibility. Now, when I say policies, for example, we have no control over customs duty. The government imposes that. We have to pay it. If we bring stuff in, we've got to pay it.
Right.
We have no control over VAT being imposed or applied to anything we purchase in this country, goods or service.
Right.
We've got to comply, right? That's just how law-abiding citizens do. But we also have to search markets to see where there are opportunities for us to leverage certain goods and services in the country, how we can bring certain costs down. I think it's going to be a case where we continue to speak with government from the private sector side to say, listen, certain things that are happening in the country, we need to relax it a little bit because it's putting too much of a squeeze, especially on the fellow at the bottom of the economic pole who really is having a hard time making ends meet in the first place. So, and then this is the idea about looking at the cost of what we're earning, looking at our issues of total factor productivity. Are we getting, if the government is imposing a fee on us for services, the first question people like me will ask is, are we getting value for that service?
Right.
If we're getting value for the service, then it becomes almost relative, right? But I think as the government moves, in order for them, if you say put it where you're talking about having a chance of being reelected, in my mind, that should be secondary.
Right.
You know? Right. If you do what has to be done on the masses benefit, you don't have to worry about being reelected. It comes almost with the territory.
Well, the question always is, if government provides relief for the businessmen, is that relief being passed on to the consumer? Because you do get the concessions, you get the relief, and the people in the stores still don't see the change.
Well, see, that is an issue that we've had for quite some time. When I served as CEO of the business organization, we had that same question, same concerns. And one of the things I remember doing then was having a direct, very, very candid conversation with businesses who were reported to be gouging prices.
Right.
Even when they got relief, it wasn't being passed on. So I think there is a moral imperative by business owners in this country as well, that if you got a relief, pass it on, because you want to, when we serve customers to serve customers again, and to serve them again. And if you're losing a customer because you're not prepared to be a little flexible in how you handle business, then you're going to lose them probably for a lifetime. So we've got to be a little more flexible in how we deal with business, and if it means that businesses are getting the relief from the government, I think it's only fair that they pass some of that relief on to their consumers and their customers.
That's where the moral obligation comes in. Edison Sumner, thank you. It's always a pleasure having you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Stay with us. When we come out, the Minister of National Security is here to discuss some critical intervention methods in the fight against crime. Find out what they are ahead. We're back after this.
Setting course for industry success, Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Tourism, Investments and Aviation, Dr. Kenneth Romer, revealed the vision for the aviation sector for 2025.
First of all, we are very proud of what we achieved in aviation in 2024. Today, stakeholders from across our entire ecosystem gathered, and we actually unveiled the 2025 vision for aviation. This year, we are strategically focused on what we call taking flight. We have spent a lot of time and yielded great results in 2024 with both regional, global, and local stakeholders in deepening those partnerships. We are doing a lot more of that in 2025. So you'll hear us now speaking about our approach to have all parties seated at the table. Your domestic, your international stakeholders, your domestic carriers, your international legacy carriers. You want to give everybody, again, through strategic partnerships, not just a chance to be in the room, but a chance to sit at the table. So we're deepening our partnerships in 2025. I'm very pleased now with this H part of our Take Flight, the development of human capital. Human capital, again, gives us the most competitive advantage in any industry. So you'll hear us now speak about a mentoring approach. We're looking at the next generation of aviators, preparing them to take leadership roles. You'll hear us about our leadership roundtables. This is going to be our intentional focus as it relates to developing human capital. So this is going to be the year we're not just focusing on developing projects, we're focusing on developing people. We call it the 3 Ps of people, projects. This is going to be another banner year for aviation, and this is going to be that we actually take flight.
For more tourism updates, visit Tourism Today or Bahamas.com. I'm Michael Miller, and this is Tourism Today.
The internet isn't just for surfing. There's a sea of shoppers buying online, and you can connect with them on Tingsy. Tingsy is the SBDC's online storefront built for Bahamians. Take your business to the next level by selling to customers online, both at home and around the world. People want Bahamian things, and if you got things to sell, sell on Tingsy. Find out how you can connect with a sea of buyers by visiting TingsyBahamas.com.
Super Bowl Sunday just got even better.
Starting January 27, enter to win a TV from Security Depot or a pizza party for 8 courtesy of Cuba Libre and Angelo's Street Side Pizzeria.
2 enter to win to be one of 2 lucky winners of the Great Game Day giveaway.
WhatsApp a photo of a 2025 Cuba Libre purchase receipt to 557-3488 with your name and phone contact by Wednesday, February 5th.
Then, watch what's trending on February 6th to see if you're one of the lucky Great Game Day giveaway winners.
Welcome back to the Rundown. Well, the Ministry of National Security has been busy implementing key measures to address social ills in communities that often turn into matters of crime. The latest to take place tomorrow. Joining me to discuss this and crime in general is the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Wayne Munro. Sir, welcome to the show. Good to have you.
Good to be here, Clint.
Before we even go into talking about initiatives, let's just get a general idea of how things are looking now. I know there's been a concerted effort to address crime, the major cases that we've been seeing happening, like murder, crime against persons, and so forth. How are we doing? How are we looking? Are we making the progress? Are we going in the right direction?
Clint, what is very important is that we are consistent in our efforts, and so that we don't have to stop and start. That, in my view, has been a cause of the difficulties that we've had over time. And so they say the Chinese are very successful because they set 20-year plans and they stick to them. We have determined that you have to look at this thing holistically, so criminals don't drop from the sky, formed and with criminal intent. At some point, every murderer was somebody's good son, even if it was just at birth. And so somewhere from birth to 14, 15, 16 today, something goes wrong. And so the approach of this administration has been that we have to look at everything in the round. And so you just don't look at the finished product, you look at how did it get here. Because you can keep recruiting police and supplying them. And if you don't address why people are arriving at that point, they'll continue to have work to do. And so that is why you see the 5-point approach and prevention first, to try and prevent people getting into criminality. If you cannot do that, then the police have to apprehend them. And we have to try them in our judicial system in terms of prosecution. We have to punish them because there has to be consequences. But after that is done, we have to rehabilitate you because you're coming back to the community. And so we have been focused on being consistent in all of those areas. And since it is an all of government, all of society effort, We've been coordinating across the government agencies, and we've been reaching out for the support of the community, and that is what is happening tomorrow.
We're seeing, I would think, it feels like a slowdown in violent crime. It feels like we don't have that constant every night, sometimes even 2, 3 murders. It seems as though there's not that turf gang war going on as rampant as it was. What's causing that to happen?
Clint, you still have the main drivers of crime, as the police say, the gang retaliation murders. You have the simple domestic matters. You have the I can't figure out how to peacefully sort out an argument. And then sadly you're seeing an increase in mentally challenged people becoming involved in violent crimes and homicides for different reasons. I have said we need to stop putting numbers on these things, because persons aren't numbers. Every person who is killed is a person to somebody. And when we reflect on that, then we can start to address it. And so yes, violent crime has been trending down, all except murder. And we've seen in the last statistics, even sexual offenses now are trending down. And that must be because the public is getting it. Because after all, it's members of the public who are committing the crimes. So it must be that persons are prevailing on their family members, their friends, to do better. It must be that our institutions of state, our civil society is participating to get people to decide that they're going to desist from criminal behavior.
Let's look at the Royal Palms Police Force. Last year, complaints against officers increased by 115% in 2024, 147 cases in 2023 to 315 last year. What's your response when you hear statistics like that?
Statistics like that can be interpreted one of 2 ways. For instance, with the sexual offenses, they were going up for a while because as you make something more comfortable for someone to report, more people will report it. As you demonstrate to persons that there will be a consequence, a result from their report, more people are likely to report it. And so the police have somehow been cursed by their own success. So when you see them putting police officers before the court, people might figure out, well, you know, there is some value in making a complaint against a policeman because something's going to happen. If you think absolutely nothing is going to happen, then of course, why waste your time in making a complaint? That used to be my experience when I was defense counsel. You'll tell someone, go make a complaint to complaints and corruption. Oh, no, Mr. Monroe, that's going to be a waste of my time. And so if those numbers are an indication that more people are having faith to come forward and make complaints because they have faith in the system that something will happen and their time won't be wasted, that is actually a positive thing.
Do you believe this has impacted the trust level between police officers and the public?
I would like to think that as the public sees that the police are holding their own accountable, they should trust them. If we were in a circumstance where you never saw a police go before the court, you should be very concerned because they're human beings, they're bound to fail and err. So how is it that we never hear them going before the court? We never see them paraded to court. And so my approach to it would be, in all of my time, about 3.5 decades back, I'm more encouraged when I see policemen being held accountable because that tells me the system is working. Whenever you see all and sundry being held accountable, that means the system is working.
Let's talk about the police force on this new leadership. Your reaction to what you're seeing. Anything changing? Are you remain confident and hopeful? She's in office now. She's functioning.
Well, let me start by saying, and it is something that I wouldn't say I'm breaching a confidence. When we met with them, all of the hierarchy of the police expressed the same thing, that the force is made up of very many good and faithful officers. And so that's the starting point. I'm encouraged that I see that when the ethics training started, it started from the top. So the first persons to go into ethics training was the commissioner and the senior executive leadership team, and they led from the front in that. And now the other officers are following through. So they've started to take steps to be open and to say, we know that we are courageous, loyal, and persons of integrity, but to demonstrate it to you, here is what we're doing. To reinforce this in our members, here is what we're doing. And quite frankly, I think that bodes well for the future. What has also been happening is there's been some discomfort because there's been some breaking of long-held matters. People are being transferred around. You know, you get comfortable in this space. And the attitude of this commissioner and a senior team of policemen have to experience the full breadth of policing to be well-rounded. And so you might not like to be transferred for the family islands, but guess what? You could be junior and have a very serious command in the family islands, something you would never have if you were to remain in New Providence. You might not want to go to a specialized agency department, but you need to experience that. And so, yes, I've been getting some complaints from people who think the minister can stop you being transferred, but for the public, I don't transfer policemen. I can't stop you being transferred. That is a matter that's a policing decision, and we leave it to them.
I'm going to ask you this question, and I normally wouldn't ask a minister this question, but you've always been one who's been very honest and upfront and bold with your answers, so I will ask it to you. Do you believe you've been effective as a Minister of National Security?
Bearing in mind what the job remit is, yes. The main task of the Minister of National Security across the agencies, one with the police, is to understand that the police are the police. I'm not the police. I'm their advocate to get resources. In terms of prevention and rehabilitation, that's where I can play an active part, and the ministry plays an active part. For the Defense Force, it's the same thing, advocating for resources. And in that organization, I give instructions. And for corrections, that's where I really get to be active in working with the commissioner on rehabilitative programs. And of course, in parliamentary, that's another independent commissioner. And so the biggest part of being a minister, in my view, to be successful is not to be too full of yourself. You're not the end-all and be-all. You have to know what your role is and fill it. And so I don't intend to be chastised by a court for impinging on, for instance, the independence of the police. You won't see that with Wayne Monroe.
Mr. Monroe, you talked about corrections. How confident are you that this time around the prison will get its accreditation?
I'm fairly confident that some of the housing units will get their accreditation. We know as a fact that maximum security will never be accredited because you cannot be accredited when you still have slopping out persons using slop buckets for human waste. We know that the remand center intake can't be accredited until the toilet system is fixed. It's out of commission now. And we have good faith that the male juvenile detention center, we're now looking at the work scheme dorm, and female may be able to be accredited. And we're working feverishly to try to get the new facility underway, because in this day and age, we really shouldn't have people slopping out human waste every morning.
So you said the remand center, the toilet system is not working.
Yes, it's the inmates through the residents, through lit fires down the toilets and that destroyed the pipes, so they need to be redone. But at least it's outfitted for indoor plumbing. Maximum security isn't outfitted for plumbing at all.
Some people would describe it as inhumane.
Well, it's been described as that, and sometimes we resist that when people take us to court. So we will continue to resist that. We do our best to make a bad situation at least bearable.
You've been pushing for Marco's alert. Are you satisfied with how the system is now operating?
It's working satisfactorily from a technological standpoint. There are still one or two glitches in terms of how it is actualized. So the alert that went out because somebody didn't call the father to see if the father had the child, and we have to work harder in stopping that from happening. But the position of the police are to err on the side of caution. That, you know, if you have a child who may be in danger, it's best to disturb you.
Right.
Than to determine not to disturb you, and then there be bad consequences. So on balance, I think it's working well. It is also used for emergency messages during hurricane season, and so it's a very useful tool.
I want to pivot now to what we started out talking about, and that is intervention methods. Tomorrow is going to be a training that takes place for pastors. Talk a little bit about what this is all about and why this route.
This is actually towards the end of an overall strategy that we launched, the first place that we launched it, and it's not a pilot. It is the first phase of the Clear Hold Bill was launched in Angliston. And the first stage is to clear. So you clear overgrown properties, you clear away derelict vehicles, you demolish unsafe structures. Why? Because that's where criminals hide their guns, their drugs. And when we cleared areas in Montel Heights, that is where, for instance, next to the school, you had old mattresses where all sorts of funny things were happening.
Wow.
And so you clear it first. And then after you clear it, you have to seek to hold it so they don't come back. So you clear the hot boys out of the area because they are not hot spots. They're just inhabited by some people who are inappropriate. And then it's up to the community to help us hold it. And then we have to build on what we have. And so as a part of the bill phase, the whole hold and bill phase, we have spoken with the community. And something that is recognized as needed is persons who can de-escalate conflicts, settle matters. Everything doesn't have to come to young people, say, a vibe that goes into something else, that ends up before the police, that ends up in court. And so we have approached the church, because there are churches scattered throughout all of our communities. We've had an initial training at the ministry with psychologists on conflict resolution. You'd be surprised, Clint, how many people die because they have no way of talking. Sometimes you see the videos, fellas start talking, they start rowing, somebody gets shot, somebody gets stabbed, and then that's a homicide. And so to try to de-escalate those, it's professionally teaching the pastors how do you resolve conflict professionally, not just thinking it. But so doing it in an ordered way. There's 2 psychologists who will run the sessions. At the end of the day, those who successfully navigate it will be certified. And that's the build towards a bigger model of community courts. So Deputy Commissioner Kopp's role, Anthony Kopp's role, and Assistant Commissioner Roger Thompson will travel either at the end of February or March to New York to see the setup of how they run one of their community courts, which is a dispute resolution method and forum that does not involve going before the actual court.
Wow.
And so we're trying to build this model where we go back to what we used to have, senior people solving problems, and the police only becoming involved in the most extreme cases. Because quite often, once you call the police, people stop talking, people stop reasoning. You call the police on me, so no more discussion.
Exactly. We ain't talking no more. You take it to a whole different level.
Exactly.
Right.
And so this is what the persons express that they wish, because when you build back, you have to build according to what people want and will support, not what you, the politician, think they should have, but what they tell you they would desire to see in their communities if it works. And so that is what we're doing tomorrow at First Baptist Church.
Awesome. We're going to take a break right here. We'll come back and wrap up with the minister and find out exactly how, I'm going to put it out to you, what you can do to get involved in how we build back our communities better and prevent crime. We'll wrap up with the minister right after the break. Stay with us.
We're here at the Nassau Village Community Center project, where over the past 17 months, we've hired over 20 Bahamian subcontractors to bring this beautiful project to fruition.
I've been living in Nassau Village for more than 19 years, and to see a project like this bring great joy and pride to me.
This state-of-the-art multi-purpose community center will serve as a crime-fighting initiative in the community. Also help with the education of our kids in this community and a hurricane shelter.
Yeah, and it also shows what we as Bahamians can achieve when we work hand in hand with each other.
We have the technical know-how, and we can pretty much deliver on any project here in the Bahamas or in the world.
Bahamas Pipe and the Bahamian Company, they prove that they believe in Bahamians.
Based on the outcome of this project, I don't think they're disappointed in giving a small person an opportunity to do a job such as this.
The more opportunity they get, the more opportunity we will get.
If you look around and see the work done so far, it just shows what we as Bahamians can do.
Is the Little Caesars Stuffed Crust Pizza. Get more pizza for less money. Only $12. It's a whole new level of pizza with cheese stuffed crust so spectacular that there's nothing left.
Pizza.
A delicious pepperoni pizza with the crust stuffed with lots of cheese and brushed with butter and garlic flavor and sprinkled with Parmesan cheese. Hot and ready Thursday to Saturday between 4 and 8 for only $12. Simply irresistible. And only at Little Caesars.
Pizza.
My motto is one girl at a time. If we start with just one thing and we build on that, I think that makes a whole big difference. When we started out, we didn't anticipate having 1,000 children here. Our goal was to reach one child at a time. The whole idea was to find a safe place for them, some place for them to express their talents and their giftings, and also a positive environment for them to be in. I do the work that I do in my community because I see that they can become more than they are. I can see that they will be great in this community. I can see born leaders. And one thing I can say, the change in them has affected their families. If we started something small, it grows, and we have a greater impact on the community as a whole. Crime-free looks like me.
Do your part. Join the movement to a safer Bahamas.
Welcome back. We're talking to the Minister of National Security, the Honorable Wayne Munro, about new intervention methods that they're using to really address crime. What's revolutionary about this is the fact that we're so used to national security being responsive and not necessarily intervention methods or preventative methods. And here are some programs that they're implementing, working with pastors to help be able to assist people with conflict resolution. And of course, with the community courts, I think he described it as where things that can't be resolved one-on-one can be resolved in an informal court setting to bring resolution to community. What role, Minister, can people play in helping to reduce crime? We're seeing it go in the right direction. How do we keep it going there? People have to play a part in this. What role do you need people to play in this?
Clint, I need people just to obey the second commandment, which is to love your neighbor as yourself.
That's a good one then. Good start right there.
It used to be very easy for us to do. It used to be that when you saw a mother struggling, instead of just making fun of her and waiting until she fails, you helped her. When you saw a young boy needing correction and mentoring, you did it. You just basically helped your neighbor because that's what loving your neighbor means. We've gone away from that, and that is the problem. And so if you have a church dance group, that's actually an intervention program if you can get young people in that. If you have anything that engages positively with young people, that's a start. Andy and Nancy Knowles, they teach young children how to swim, but on the bus ride, you get memory verses, songs, you get discipline. So it doesn't always have to be the police force, the defense force doing hype, doing shock treatment, that sort of stuff. It's the things that you can do yourself. That's what the Prime Minister means when he says all of society. We can all help somebody, even if it's just encouraging them. You know, Clint, I read a crime report where a young lady attempted suicide in Abaco, 21 years old, because she said she didn't think anyone loved her.
Wow.
So simply to be able to say, good day, how you doing, share a pleasant word. All of that is loving your neighbor. Because if you're loving your neighbor, you can't kill him, eh?
Right.
You can't rob him.
Right.
You can't jerk him up. And so that very simple commandment, which is the second commandment, which is like the first, which is just love your neighbor, just stop being mean, cantankerous, and downright nasty.
Right.
Just understand that we're all Bahamians. There's enough for everyone. And if we keep pulling each other up, we'll all rise. Forward, upward, onward together. That's what the motto says.
Yep.
And so that's what we need. We need everyone to understand you have a part in this. Do the little that you can do, or the great things that you can do, and don't worry about what anyone else is doing.
All right, Minister, I think that's a good note to lead on. Thank you so much for being here and talking to us tonight, and we continue to support the efforts of all of our armed forces as they try to make this place safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint.
When we come back, we go to Turks and Caicos and find out the latest as they prepare for their general elections in just a matter of 2 days. We're back after this. Stay close.
Mailboat service is a critical service to the islands of the Bahamas. Certainly, Andrews has always been there and dear to us. That's where we're born and raised. And so we play a crucial role in advancing the growth and development of Andrews. Customers want service and they want consistency. From the start, that's been our commitment. We work to sail on time every time. Our customers have come now to expect this from us. And one of the biggest challenges we've had was finding adequate funding. SPDC from the very start has been a lifesaver. My advice to young people, if you have a vision, a passion, an idea, go for it. Don't give up. It's not easy. If it was, everybody would be doing it. Be consistent and you'll get there.
Public Hospitals Authority wishes to advise the public that during a storm, hospital visitation hours, specialty clinics, rehabilitation and outpatient services, with the exception of the emergency department, are suspended. The public is asked to pay particular attention to announcements prior to and during the storm for information about the suspension or the resumption of hospital visitation hours, specialty clinics, rehabilitation or outpatient services, and the rescheduling of appointments, elective, and other surgeries. If you have a loved one in hospital, speak with the nurse in charge of his or her care to provide necessary items for your loved one prior to the storm's arrival.
Welcome back to the Rundown. On Friday, the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands will head to the polls to elect their next government for a 5-year term. Of course, last night we heard from Premier Washington Missick on really what his plans are, why he believes he and his government should be re-elected. Well, the leader of the opposition's People Democratic Movement in the Turks and Caicos Islands, the Honorable Edwin Aswood, is making the rounds ahead of general elections on Friday. He joined our Emiko Knowles for an in-depth conversation on the pressing issues facing the TCI, from economic recovery to governance challenges. Aswood shares pretty much an exclusive insight into his vision for the country and why he believes his party is a right choice for the people. Take a look.
My name is Edwin Aswood. I am the leader of the opposition and leader of the People's Democratic Movement.
Okay. Thank you so much once again for making yourself available to us this afternoon. First question, as the leader of the PDM, what is your vision for the Turks and Caicos Islands?
My vision is really and truly uplifting of our people in our country. We have seen over the past 4 years that there has been a decline in our people participation in business, our people participation in the wealth of the country, our people participation in the top jobs, getting access to scholarships, access to loans, home ownership. We have just seen a decline in Turks and Caicos Islands participation. Now we have to turn things around.
The cost of living in TCI is a major concern for many residents. What is your plan to help it to be more affordable for them?
We have to go into what is the root cause of why the cost of living is so high. People like to go back to the supply chain. So we have to look at all that. We have to look at the customs tariff here, see how we can expand the breadbasket items, what things we can bring down. But whenever a government does those kind of measures, we need to make sure that the consumer benefits.
Can you list some of the differences between your leadership and the PNP?
We have always been the party that represents our people. But over the years, the PNP has been the party that represents the interests of big business, foreign companies. Yes, they would give our people a little, but they take more for themselves. They see themselves as top class, and the rest of us are just civil servants or little businessmen struggling. So our main thing is our people is at our heart. Our people are our priority. With the PDM, we will ensure that the rising tide will float all boats. We're not going to cherry pick who is successful.
You're talking a little bit about the economic development and job creation. As tourism remains a dominant sector in TCI, how will you diversify the economy to ensure long-term stability?
We saw during the pandemic how difficult it was when your economy is just based on tourism. When people stop traveling, airlines cannot move people. People cannot go into the hotels. We see how it crippled here. And unlike some countries in the Caribbean that had a striving financial services where they can just close down, we had to go through the painstaking process of trying to keep our country open. So we realized that we have to diversify our economy. We cannot just rely on tourism. A pandemic, a bad storm, anything can cripple tourism. So we have to look at trade. Trade isn't going anywhere. The position, the geographic position of the Turks and Caicos Islands makes us suitable for trade, cargo, shipping port, transport. We are positioned for it. Deep water, islands, outer islands, uninhabited islands with access to deep water. We have to get trade going.
I want to get into crime and national security. Crime has been a growing issue in the country. Residents are extremely concerned, and the current government says they have policies and plans in place to counteract that and strengthen its borders. What is your plan to combat the crime and the high importation of illegal firearms in Turks and Caicos Islands?
Yes, thank you very much. Obviously, the plans that the government has put forward has been failing, and it's failed miserably. And we saw that they only wait until the House was dissolved to go to cabinet to get $500,000 for additional boots on the ground, when many people have already lost their lives. You see the difference between the PDM and the PNP. We are a proactive government. We want to put things in place before they happen. We're not going to be like this government, reactive. After the case, now you're going to go and do it. We truly believe that prevention and ounce of prevention is better than a pound of cure.
Some policies have changed over the years as it relates to Turks and Caicos Islands government, but how will you ensure transparency and accountability within your administration?
We're going to make sure that after every cabinet meeting, we have something like how you have the press secretary in the U.S., that someone comes out of cabinet and address reporters, address the nation. This has been passed. Persons want to ask questions about it. Why did you make this decision? Why did you make that? Myself may appear. Other ministers, members of cabinet appear and address cabinet, the nation. Every time cabinet is finished, we'll have that press secretary, that press office that will address people and other decisions. When we come out of the House of Assembly, we're going to make sure that our people know every decision that we made on behalf of them. So I'm not just new to this game. I have been put through the test. They have seen me in the House of Assembly, the only person elected, one man elected against 14 other elected officials, and represented them, held those persons accountable where they were afraid of me, one man they were afraid of. So imagine now with my team, imagine now doing all that by myself at that time with one appointed member and represented the Turks and Caicos Islands. So I know I am the man for the Turks and Caicos Islands, and I know with me and my team, we can take the Turks and Caicos Islands forward.
Thank you so much for your time, Honorable Edwin Asquith. I do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
All right, there you have it. That's his focus. That's his goal. He's going up against the premier, who's hoping to be re-elected. And on Friday, the people of the Turks and Caicos Islands will decide that. Our Ramiko Knowles is live in the Turks and Caicos Islands. He's joining us tonight. Ramiko, great interview there. You've done an excellent job last night and again tonight. Let me ask you, what is the atmosphere like on the ground? Have you been talking to residents? What are the people saying as to who they want to lead them in the next term of government? Is it a clear-cut lead, or does it seem like a deadlock? What is your reaction on the ground?
Well, Clint, at this point, it would be premature for me to make that assertion as to who would be the next government to run this country. Due to my busy schedule, I haven't had an opportunity to meet with the electorate like I would like to. But let me tell you, some persons are saying that they are going PNP straight down the line. Others are saying that their vote is going to be split between the candidates, and some are undecided. But February 7th is certainly shaping up to be a hotly contested election. And as you mentioned, speaking with the current Premier, Charles Washington Mizik, he's confident that the voters will re-elect him to office on February 7th. He's campaigning on the promises that he has delivered on over the last 4 years. Meanwhile, the People's Democratic Movement, they are saying that enough is enough. They're ready for change, and they're telling the people of Turks and Caicos Island that if you want change, then you need to change the government. But as for the electorate, right now it's kind of hard to tell because it's up in the air. So Friday is going to be interesting.
I know in the Bahamas, when we have elections, it's always like it seems like a festive time, exciting time, events, rallies. Is that the same kind of mood in the Turks and Caicos Islands? Rallies going on, people buzzing about the action intensifying?
Absolutely. We haven't had the chance to attend any rallies as yet. We're going to do that later this week. But as you said, people are wearing their party paraphernalia. They're representing in their shirts, their hats. Just moments ago, a vehicle drove by playing the music. The campaign songs are in the air. And people are certainly feeling election fever here in Turks and Caicos. And as mentioned, I think Friday is going to be interesting. Both parties are certain that they will come out with the victory. And so it's going to be something to see. And as you mentioned, I can't actually tell the difference between Grand Bahama and Turks and Caicos Islands. The people are passionate about politics, and that's what I'm seeing on the ground, just as they are in the Bahamas. And they're telling people to vote for them because they believe that they can bring the change that this country needs.
All right, well, we'll see. Ramiko Knowles, thanks. Great reporting there. You and your team stay safe. Thanks again. Our Ramiko Knowles reporting from Turks and Caicos Islands. He'll be keeping us covered all week. Well, that does it for the rundown. Be sure to stay locked on the ZNS Network for the Bahamas tonight at 11. It's the final newscast in the country with the latest news and information with Royston Jones. And he is in the building getting ready for the 11 o'clock news. For all of us here at ZNS, I'm Clint Watson. Thanks for joining us. Good night.
At Centerville, I'm LaDawn Davis. This is ZNS.
Thou shalt not kill, the sixth commandment that God has given us. Unfortunately, many in our society do not adhere to this, and we are faced with the increase in murders every year. What should be the punishment? The Privy Council has said only the worst of the worst can receive the